Hello everyone, this is Professor Vincent Torrebongolan, and today I will going to discuss about the different sampling techniques. Alright, so previously I already discussed the different research formats, styles, or templates. We have the APA, MLA, IMRAD, Chicago, Turabian, and AP formats. Alright, so today I'll going to discuss about the population, the sample, sampling techniques. Alright, but before that, we need to discuss what is statistics. Statistics is a science of collection, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. It is called a science because it uses a scientific and systematic procedures in the conduct of research. From the collection, from the presentation, analysis, and interpretation of the data, there is a required procedure and format. Alright? So, in identification of a sample, we need to make sure that a population and a sample is clear. Okay, so a population is defined as the entirety of the group, meaning to say a population includes all the entity, includes all the unit under study. A sample is a subset of the population, meaning to say a sample is just a portion from the population. Please note that in research, a population doesn't always refer to people. It can mean a group containing elements of anything you want to study. It could be an object, an event, an organizations, countries, species, organisms, etc. Alright, so I hope everyone guys that population and sample is very clear. So these are the some examples of a population and a sample. For example, the population would be the number of BPO companies in the Philippines. Since you cannot do research, and for example, you only have 1 month or weeks to do research, of course, you can do research. You can do survey all the BPO in the Philippines. And aside from the time frame, of course, you also need to consider your budget. Alright, so for you to be able to perform your research about the BPO companies in the Philippines, you have to delimit. Okay? So let's say, for example, instead of getting all the BPO companies in the Philippines, you only need to focus on the BPO in Quezon City with less than 4,000 employees. So something like that. You need to make sure that it is doable and, under your scope. Okay? So other examples include the undergraduate students in PUP, the educational institutions in the Philippines, number of doctors in the Philippines, number of malls in the Philippines, and so on and so forth. There are so many populations. Okay, and out of which we need to get only a portion of it that could represent this population. So it is very important that the sample that we have truly represents the population. Otherwise, we cannot able to draw conclusions. Alright? So this is the visualization of a population and a sample. So a population is always greater than a sample, where that makes sense because a sample is just a subset of the population. Okay, next one is the sampling. Sampling is a technique of selecting individual members or a subset of the population to make statistical inferences from them and estimate the characteristics. Okay, so a sampling is a technique, it is a procedure. All right, so for example, I will ask you to do research on this one. Research on the graduates of PUP taking up statistics. So what you will going to do is to do a sampling. Okay, you need to do a sampling. And the sampling frame is the list of the actual cases from which a sample will be drawn. Okay, so a sampling frame is the list of the actual cases from which a sample will be drawn. So let's say, for example, you need to do a survey. Let's say this is a tracking. This is a tracker, okay, of the graduates in PUP. So the population would be the undergraduate students in PUP. The sampling frame would be the undergraduate who took up Bachelor in Applied Statistics in year 2020. Okay, so the sampling frame would be, again, the number of students, the actual list of students who graduated Bachelor in Applied Statistics in 2020. So that is the sampling frame. And then from the sampling frame, you need to get only a sample. Okay, let's say, for example, there are a total of 50 students. Okay, let's say there are a total of 50 students in there are 50 students who graduated Bachelor in Applied Statistics in 2020. Okay, so you need to get the list of these 50 students. And from the 50 students, you need to determine the number of the sample. Okay, so the question there is, how many from the 50 is the required sample? So I already discussed the procedure in some of my other video. I will also include the procedure here, the calculation, in the description of this video. The sampling techniques. So in order for you to draw a valid conclusion from the results, you have to carefully decide how will you select a sample that could really represent the whole group, that could really represent the population. So let's say, for example, you need to select, let's say, 20 from the 50 students of statistics who graduated in 2020. So that 20 should represent the 50 students. That is a sampling technique. It is very important that the sample you have chosen really represents the population. All right? And there are two types of sampling techniques: the probability and non-probability sampling technique. The probability sampling techniques refers to the selection of the sample from a population when this selection is based on the principle of randomization, that is, random selection or chance. Probability sampling is more complex, more time-consuming, and usually more costly than non-probability sampling. A non-probability sampling techniques is the opposite of the probability sampling. This is sometimes called a distribution-free. Okay? It involves non-random selection based on the convenience, based on the criteria, allowing you to easily select the data. Okay? So all you need to do when you are utilizing the non-probability sampling technique is that you need to have a clear guidelines on how you are going to select your sample. Okay? So that is the difference between probability and non-probability sampling technique. So now let's discuss the different techniques under probability sampling. First one is the simple random sampling. Okay, so the first one is the simple random sampling. In simple random sampling, or SRS, each sampling unit of a population has an equal chance of being included in the sample. Consequently, its possible sample also has an equal chance of being selected. Let's say, for example, the undergraduate students of the Bachelor in Applied Statistics in 2020. So what we're going to do is to perform a fishbowl sampling. So meaning to say, we will write all the names of the graduates in PUP who took up Bachelor in Applied Statistics in 2020. So let's say there are 50 students. No? There are 50 graduates. So what we're going to do is to write all their names and put it in a fishbowl or a bowl. And then we will pick the required number of sample from the fishbowl. Okay? And then the number of people, whoever we pick, are our sample. Alright? So that is a simple random sampling. Don't be confused, guys, because there are some students who consulted me in the past, and I've asked them what's their sampling techniques. They told me it's simple random sampling, sir. So how did you apply, or how did you utilize the simple random sampling? Sir, we went to this area. We went to the class and so on and so forth. And whoever wanted to participate in the research, that's our sample. I was shocked because that is not the theory. That is not what simple random sampling. Okay? That is not a simple random sampling. The second one is the systematic random sampling. So there are also confusion in this sampling technique, guys, no? The systematic random sampling, meaning to say there is a gap or interval between each selected unit in the sample. So there are steps to do this. First is you need to number the units on your frame. Let's say your population is 500. So your population are 500, and then your sample, okay, or the required sample size out of 500, let's say 100. So next is you need to calculate the sampling interval. So to do this, you need to divide 100 from 500. So the sampling interval is 5. Okay. Next is select the random start, and from there, count the number of interval, or consider the number of intervals from the random start. You know, guys, when I was taking up statistics course in college, actually, random start generator or random number generators was introduced by my professor. However, this past few years after, after my uh, after our time or era, I don't know if it's uh, being discussed in class. Okay, so the random start generator should look like this. As you can see, the the row number 1 to 20 to 40. So to do this, to do this, you need to close your eyes and put your fingers on the left side and choose the numbers, and then open your eyes and check and see what numbers you have chosen, something like that. So let's say, for example, you close your eyes and you chose 6. Okay, so check the see the corresponding number. Okay, so go to the row number 6, and the corresponding number is 234. So meaning to say, the number 234 out of 500 is your first sample. And then from number 6, you need to count 5. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So next is 37. And then again, from 11, you need to count another 5 because your interval is 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 289. And then again, you need to count another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 288. Okay? And so on and so forth, until you complete 100 sample. Okay, so remember, there are more than 12 columns here, guys, no? So I just select only few tables, but there are more than 12 columns. Okay, so you need to complete this procedure until you reach 100. So that is how systematic random sampling techniques works. Now let's go to stratified random sampling. When using stratified sampling, the population is divided into homogeneous, mutually exclusive groups called strata, and then independent samples are selected from each stratum. Let's say this is your population, and your population was divided into 3 stratum. Stratum 1, stratum 2, and stratum 3. Okay, as you can see, it says that a stratified random sampling should be homogeneous and mutually exclusive groups. So meaning to say, stratum 1, for example, does have the same colors. Okay, so does have the same colors. So stratum 2 also the same colors. Stratum 3 also the same colors. So that is what homogeneous is. Meaning to say, each stratum has a homogeneous members. Meaning to say, they do have the same characteristics and or features. And from each stratum, we will going to select a representative for each stratum. And this one. Okay, so go back. So we will be getting 2 from stratum 1, additional 2 from stratum 2, and additional 2 from stratum 3. So that's why our sample are 6. Okay? So this is how a stratified random sampling is. A cluster random sampling divides the population into groups or clusters. A number of clusters are selected randomly to represent the total population, and then all units within selected clusters are included in the sample. Let's say, for example, you need to select, okay, meaning to say, for example, you need to send at least participants from an international contest. Let's say, for example, your organization, let's say, for example, in a university, when there are varsities, okay? So, in a university where there are varsities, and since there are numbers or hundreds of universities in each country, or let's say focus on the Philippines, how many universities we have in the Philippines? And all universities are members of NCAA or any other organizations or groups. Let's say, for example, we will be focusing on the number of universities with a membership from NCAA. So instead of getting a representative from each universities, what we're going to do is to select only one university out of the number of universities. And we will be getting all their population from the chosen university. So that is how cluster random sampling is. Alright, so on my next video, I will going to do an actual calculation, actual computation, and actual demonstration on how these sampling techniques, on how to do these sampling techniques, so that you will not be confused. Alright, so if you have any other questions, please put your comments in the comment section, and I will try my best to answer all your inquiries. Thank you and have a great day.